Haunting Gain tormented Plainfield, Wisconsin, for decades as a grave robber. My grandpa had heard stories of the man who unearthed the dead and used their remains for his twisted invention. But it wasn't until years later that he discovered how close the tragedy was. Once my grandfather died, my parents managed the family home. I spent many summers in that ancient house exploring the local woods and fields, but as I got older, something felt strange. I would wake up in the middle of the night to footsteps and murmurs from vacant rooms. My parents thought it was ancient house creaks, but I knew otherwise. I researched it one summer after college. I felt watched at my grandpa's family graveyard. Several gravestones were disturbed as I walked past them. Digging was recent since the dirt was still fresh. When I hurried back to my grandfather's house, I felt something horrible pursuing me. Despite locking the door, I heard footsteps and whispers from the other side. In my nightmare, the graves were open and the corpses were getting up and staring at me. I woke up screaming and knew I had to go, but when I tried to get my things, all the doors and windows were locked from the outside. I tried to escape, but their clammy hands caught me and pulled me down. I recognized him because I was locked and could smell evil. The cemetery graves were open again, but this time the bodies were lying down with their limbs twisted at inconceivable angles and their eyes looking blankly into the sky. I learned Ed Jane was a necromancer using his twisted powers to raise the dead. Ed Jane smirked in the corner. I tried to leave when he pointed, but the undead were pursuing me from all sides, their icy breath chilling me to the bone. No one helped me. I was alone when a zombie army appeared. He gleamed evilly. "This is what happens when you disturb the dead," he boomed across the cemetery. I was paralyzed by fear as zombies approached. Just as they were about to grab me, a bright light vanished them. I woke up safe in my grandfather's house, but I knew I had just escaped a destiny worse than death. I saw Ed Jane in the fields grinning twistedly as I looked out the window. I realized I had to leave Plainfield. I barely survived the grave robber's vengeance, but I knew others would not and that the small community would be frightened for years. My grandmother saw something she will never forget as a child. The seance was for a sadly deceased girl. My skeptical great-grandmother attended the seance. My great-grandmother didn't believe in such things, so she brought the seance table home and set it by a window to watch the people chant and call to the little girl's spirit, but nothing happened. Once it burned her traps an hour later, he pondered about it. After the fire, the table was disposed of. My family renovated the old house after inheriting it years later. My grandmother was drawn to the haunted table legend and wanted to learn more. When we arrived, the house was in shambles with peeling paint and boarded-up windows. Renovations proceeded well until we reached the haunting table room. It was intact despite dust and cobwebs. My grandma felt a chill when she couldn't help touching it. We retired early after a day of repairs. Yet, odd noises from the eerie table room kept me awake. When I looked, nothing was moving. My grandmother's nightmares worsened everything. She screamed in the middle of the night with scratches on her arms and legs. The little girl's ghost haunted the house. The house started acting strangely the next day. Self-closing doors. Empty rooms made footsteps. Finally, we call it a paranormal investigation team came to the house with cameras and recording equipment to help us. They then investigated. They swiftly confirmed our assumptions that the table was haunted by the ghost of the young girl who had died years earlier. They recommended a seance to break the curse. We gathered around the table like the villagers had decades earlier. We summoned the tiny girl's spirit. Something unexpected happened after some silence. We felt a cold breeze and the table trembled. The little girl's spirit was freed when we heard a child's voice whispering in our ears. We left the house without fear when the ghostly table's power was lifted. The haunted table haunted us for years, and we were always wary of items with a dark past. My family sold the renovated house to a new family years later, and we never heard of any strange incidents again. We learned that past mistakes might catch up with us, and that we should always be careful who we invite into our homes. The haunted table was just a table, but it tormented us forever. My family rarely talked about our ancestry. We discovered our connection to the home massacre in Denmark when my mother started investigating our family history. Celestine Marion de Bailey, a children's tale, has one of the creepiest legends I've ever heard. Celestine, the daughter of a nobleman, loved a stable boy, according to folklore. She was imprisoned by her father after becoming pregnant. No one helped her beg for mercy. Her ghost haunts Drag's home slot forever. She haunted the hallways in a white dress, crying. After discovering our connection to the ghost, we traveled to Denmark to visit Mom's castle. I felt anxiety at the castle. I felt like we weren't alone on the castle tour. I felt monitored as we walked the corridors. I shuddered when we entered Celestine's bricked-up room. Her ghostly screams echoed through the heavy walls. We stayed in a nearby motel, but I couldn't sleep because I kept hearing strange noises outside our window and felt like we were in danger. We revisited